We continue now at the top of Daf Ayin Zayin Amud Aleph and Meseches Menachos. This is Menachos Daf 77a. On the previous summit, the Mishnah was discussing the 40 loaves of the carbon toda. Again, with regards to the 40 loaves, 10 of those loaves are chametz, and the other 30 loaves are matzah. And the Mishnah on the previous summit said that there's a total of 20 isarn of flour, and it's divided in half. Half of that is used for the chametz, half of that is used for the matzah. As the Mishnah now continues, asara l'chametz, there are 10 isarn for the chametz loaves, and it works out to isarun l'chalitz, therefore 1 isarun per loaf, because there are a total of 10 chametz loaves. And the Mishnah continues, v'asara l'matzah, and then there are also 10 isarun for the matzah loaves. And the Mishnah continues, uva matzah shalosh minin, with regards to the matzah loaves, there are actually 3 types of matzah loaves, and they are chalos, rakikin, and ravucha. They are called chalos, rakikin, and ravucha, and again, there are 10 loaves of each type, and therefore, nimsu, it comes out, shlosha esronim ushlish, l'chol min v'min. It's going to come out that it's 3 1/3 sarns of flour for each type of matzah, v'shalosh chalos li'isarn, and therefore there are going to be 3 matzah loaves per every isaron. And the Mishnah continues, Uvamida Yerushalmios, if this is measured in the Yerushalayim measures and the Jerusalem measure, so then Hayushloshim Kav, so then the 5 sa is equal to 30 Kav, and that comes out to Chamisha Asr L'chametz, that comes out to 15 Kav for the Chametz loaves, V'chamisha Asr L'matzah, and it comes out to 15 Kavs for the Matzah loaves. And the Mishnah continues and explains, Chamisha Asr L'chametz, with regards to the 15 Kav for the Chametz, that's Kav U'mechsa L'chala, that's going to come out to a Kav and a half per loaf. And chamisha asr l'matzah, with regards to the 15 kav for the matzah, uvematzah shalosh minin, and again by the matzah there are 3 types. There's chalos, urakikin, uravucha. There's chalos and rakikin and ravucha. So nimsu, so it comes out chameshes kavin l'chol min v'min. It's going to be 5 kav for each type. Ushtei chalos l'kav. It's going to come out that there are 2 matzah loaves per kav. And we will note over here the difference between the chalos, rakikin, and the ravucha. The chalos, they are made by mixing the oil into the dough before it's baked. The rakikin are smeared with oil after they are baked. And then with regards to the ravucha, first they are scalded in water, and then they are baked in the oven, and finally they are fried in the oil. And that's the difference between the 3 types of matzah loaves. And the Rashi Ksaviyat explains, Uvamida Yerushalmis, again, if we're measuring Yerushalmis, Shalo Hayu Bo Esronos, there it didn't go by Isarons, Ela Kavin, and went by Kavin, so Hayu Chamisha Soin, so the 5 saw were Shloshim Kavin, they were 30 Kavin, Shisha Kavin Lasa, that's 6 Kav per saw. And we will note over here that the 5 saw that Rashi is referring to is the same 5 saw that was mentioned at the beginning of the Mishnah in the previous summit. Again, it was 5 saw Yerushalmios, which was 6 saw Midbarios, that's 6 saw, according to the measurements of the wilderness, the original biblical measurements. And the Gemara says, Hatoda Haisabah Chamesh Son Yerushalmios. Again, the Mishnah said that the loaves, the flour of the loaves of the carbon toda, those are 5 saw Yerushalmios, which is the same as 6 saw Midbarios, 6 wilderness saw, and that actually equals 2 ephah. And so the Gemara continues and asks, Menani Mili, from where do we know this? And the Gemara says, Amar Rav Chisda says, the Amar Kra, it's because the Pasuk says, and this is a Pasuk in Yechezkel, Ha'efa v'habas, the Ephah and the Bas, Tochen Echad Yiyah, they are going to have the same volume, and Ma Bas Shalosh Soy, and just like the Bas is 3 saw, Af Ephah Shalosh Soy, and so too we therefore know that the Ephah is 3 saw, and once we know that the Ephah is 3 saw, so it emerges that 2 ephah is going to be 6 saw, and again that is 6 saw Midbarios converted to Yerushalmios, it's going to be 5 saw. And the Gemara continues, Uvas Gufa Minolan, but where do we know the Bas? How do we know that that is 3 saw? The Gemara says, Ilema Midichsiv, if you're going to say it's because it's written in the Pasuk also, this is the Pasuk in Yechezkel, it says, Loses Meiser HaChomer Habas, the Bas shall be taken as the Meiser, as the tithe of the liquid Chomer, but Ephonami, but then with regards to the Ephah as well, Haksiv, it's written in the Pasuk, Vasiris HaChomer HaEphah, it says, Asiris HaChomer HaEphah, which means the tithe of the Chomer is the Ephah. And so therefore, essentially, it's the same thing. It says by the Bas, the same thing that it says by the Ephah. Why do we know more by the Bas than we know by the Ephah? Ela Chomer lo yadana kama. Rather, must be we don't know what the Chomer is. So Hachanami here also lo yadana kama. We don't know exactly what the Chomer is. So therefore, we have no way of deriving that the Bas is shalosh soin, that the Bas is 3 saw, or the Ephah is shalosh soin, or the Ephah is 3 saw. And so the Gemara continues instead and says, Ela mehacha. Rather, it comes from here. Also a pasuk in Yechezkel. The pasuk in Yechezkel says, V'chok Hashem, and it says, the chok Hashem, the law of the oil, Habas Hashem, and it says the bas is the measure of the oil, Umaiser habas min hakor, and a bas shall be the tithe of the core, it shall be the meiser of the core. Aseres habotim chomer, ki aseres habotim chomer. 10 bas are a chomer because 10 bas are a chomer. And the idea over here is that a bas is a tenth of a core. We happen to know that a core is 30 saw, so therefore we can understand that a bas is 3 saw. And once we earlier said that the ephah has the same volume as a bas, so it must be that the ephah as well contains 3 saw. And the idea over here is that this pasuk teaches explicitly that a bas is a tenth of a core, and if we know that a core is 30 saw, so then we can understand that a bas is 3 saw. And we said earlier that an ephah has the same volume as a bas, and therefore an ephah also contains 3 saw. And the Gemara continues, Amar Shmuel, Shmuel says, Ein mosifin al hamidos yoser mishasus. We're not allowed to increase the sizes of measures by more than 1/6. Again, the Mishnah mentioned that the Yerushalmios, they changed the measure from what it was in the Midbar, and so Shmuel is setting the rules in terms of changing the sizes of the measurements. Velo al matbeya yoser mishasus. Also, when it comes to increasing the weight of the coins, it cannot be by more than 1/6. V'hamistaker, and one who profits, that's talking about one who profits from buying and selling. This is talking specifically about buying and selling things that are staples. So v'hamistaker lo yistaker yoser mishasos. One who makes a profit should not profit by more than 1/6. And the Gemara continues, my time, what is the reason? Why is it that one may not increase by more than 1/6? Now, if you're going to say that there's a concern for afkui tara, which essentially means a concern for inflation, but if that's the case, so 1/6 should also be a problem. And so the Gemara continues, Ella rather, maybe we'll suggest, Mishum Onah, that the reason is because of Onah, the halachas of Onah, ki hechi delo lahave bittul mekach. That way we can avoid a situation of bittul mekach. The idea over here is that if we limit the amount that we change the measurements to 1/6, so let's say a particular merchant doesn't realize that the measures have been changed, and so then the sale was off by 1/6. So 1/6, we don't say bittul mekach, we don't say the entire sale is nullified. We say that amount needs to be choser, that amount needs to be returned, but we are not mevatel the entire mekach, and so maybe we're trying to just avoid a situation of bittul mekach. Maybe that's why it can't be more than 1/6, but 1/6 is okay. But the problem is, v'amar Rava, but Rava said, kol davar shebemida v'shebemishkal v'shebeminyan, anything that is according to measure or weight or number, so afilu pachos michdei onah choser. So over there, if it's something that can be measured, so even if the discrepancy was less than the standard amount of 1/6, still we say that the entire thing is choser, the entire sale is choser, and so therefore in a situation where the merchant, let's say, is unaware that the size of the measure has changed, so then what's essentially happening is it's something where the measure is off, and if the measure is off, even if it's 1/6 exactly, we say bittul mekach, and so therefore that cannot be the reason. And so the Gemara continues, Ella rather misham tagra, the reason is misham tigra, the reason is because of a merchant who's unaware of the increase, and ki hechi delo limtia diyana, and some have the gears here of ziyana. The idea is that we limit it to 1/6 so that the merchant who normally profits by 1/6, he shouldn't suffer a loss of his principal of the main amount. Let's say again, he doesn't know the exact measure. The idea over here is that the profit is generally 1/6, and so therefore maybe he'll lose out on the profit, but he won't lose out any more than that. But the Gemara says to that, Yanahu delo limti, are we concerned only that he shouldn't suffer a loss? But Rav Chalo Bay, does he not need to make a profit? Isn't there a need to make a profit? Zavan v'zabin tagora ikri, somebody who buys and sells is called a merchant even though he's not making any money. And so the Gemara continues and says, Elam Rav Chisda, rather, Rav Chisda says, Shmuel kra ashkach v'dara. Shmuel actually, he found the pasuk and he darshan the pasuk as follows, and this pasuk also is in Sefer Yechezkel. The pasuk says, Hashekel esrim geira, the shekel is 20 geira, esrim shkolim, chamisha v'esrim shkolim, asara v'chamisha shekel. shekel, that's 20 shekel, and 25 shekel, and 15 shekel, hamoni yelochem, it's going to be a mana to you. And so the pasuk seems to be saying that a mana is a total of 60 shkolim, but mana, mosan, varboin, half, is that really true? Does a mana really consist of 240 dinars? 240 dinars is 60 shkolim, but that's not true. It's an established fact that a mana is actually 100 dinar, which actually is 25 shekel. Elashma minot tlos, we see from here, rather, we see three things from this pasuk. Number one, shma mino, we see from here that mana shel kodesh kafel haya, we see that the mana that was in the Beis Hamikdash, the mana of the sanctuary, was double the common mana. Ushma minon, we also see from here, mosifin al amidos, that it's possible to add on to the measurements. Ve'ein mosifin yoser mishasos, but we don't add on more than a sixth. And finally, ushma mino, we also see shesusa milavar, that when we add on the sixth, it's reckoned externally. It means to say that it's a sixth of the new larger measure, not of the original measure. In other words, when we're adding a sixth, we don't take the original measure 1/6 of that and add on. Rather, we take essentially 1/5 of that and add on, and then the new total, what we added on, is going to be 1/6. And the Gemara continues, Amar Ravina, Ravina says, Mas Nisan Nami Dek, our Mishnah also, a precise reading of our Mishnah, it supports Shmuel. To Katani, because what does it say in our Mishnah? It says, Toda Haisabah Chamesh Son Yerushalmios, that the Toda was 5 Son Yerushalmios, Shein Sheish Midbarios, which is Sheish Midbarios, which is 6 Midbarios. And so therefore, Shma Mino, we see from here that when we're adding the sixth, it's actually being added externally, meaning to say, the Chamesh Son Yerushalmios represents 6 midbarios, because a Saw Yerushalmi is actually 1/5 bigger than the one in the midbar. And Rashi Ksavyat explains, again, the pasuk in Yechezkel indicated that a mana is 240 dinar instead of 100 dinar, and so the Gemara explained, Kafel Hay, it must be it was doubled. To have a Mosan, that already would account for the 200 dinar. V'hanach arboim, now what about the 40, the Tfei al Masayim, which is added on to the 200? Tosefes hu dahosifu, that must have been an addition when they changed the measurements. Shasus, they added 1/6. The arboim have shasus shel Masayim, because 40 is actually 1/6 of 200. Again, that's externally, it's 1/6 of 200. Ushasus milavar, that's 1/6 externally, because it's really 1/5. In other words, if you take 1/5 of 200, that is going to be 40, and then you add that, so you have a total of 240. Now 1/6 of the 240 is going to be 40. As Rashi explains, shal hey pa'amim arboim, because 5 times 40, hey viu mibachutz arboim, they added another 40. Pam shishas, for a 6th time. V'lo amrinon she'echloko hamasayim l'sheish chalakim. We don't say that we divide the 200 into 6 portions. We're not dividing 200 by 6. Again, we're dividing it by 5. D'hava l'chol chelek v'chelek shalosh u'shloshim zuzim u'shlish. That would be a different amount. It would be 33 and a third dinar. U'meyosan chalakim nosef es hashsos al hamoneh d'hava le'shsos milagav. That would be an internal 1/6. That's not what we do. Again, we say it's essentially 1/5, what we call 1/5 internally, 1/5 of 200. That's added to the 200, and we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Ayin Zayin Amid Beis.